Welcome to this FEI Coach Education webinar. I'm Gareth Marr, delighted to be joined by Republic of Ireland and Everton goalkeeping coach Alan Kelly, FEI Coach Educator and Shelbourne System Manager Craig Sexton, and just a mouthful of a title, Dan Connor, Head of Goalkeeping and Professional Development Phase Liaison at Forest Green. Did I get that right?
That one was just called Carrier.
Could you send me a business card for that one?
I'll add in Draw the United Legend as well there. Will we add in that one as well? Alan, can I just kick off with you just with a very generic question? You can see over your shoulder a lot of memories there. And quite simply, like, how was goalkeeping training and coaching changed during your career?
Well, I suppose as a living embodiment of it, really. When I first started back in 1985, some of the lads might say yes in a different century, but we didn't have a goalkeeping coach. So for the first 7 years of my career, I didn't have a goalkeeping coach. So you had to work it out for yourself. You had to learn from your own experiences and solve your own problems. And then obviously, as going into the 90s and especially the start of the Premier League, that's when specific and specialised goalkeeping coaches started coming into the game. So. And then we fast forward to the modern day now, and we look at, in terms of the courses that you were for putting on, we're looking at the inclusiveness of a goalkeeping coach, not just as a goalkeeping coach, but as a coach within a management team, which we've spoken about in the FAI and working as a model for us. I think it's the way it's evolved is good because it's we have a sort of specialised view of looking at the game as well. And to have another set of eyes looking at another situation from a different perspective, I think can only be good for if you're a manager, if you're a coach, and for a team as well. So I think that evolving and going from the mid 80s now to 2020, I think it's evolved for the right reasons, and and a lot of people, a lot of coaches, and a lot of management teams have benefited from it.
Alan, did you personally benefit from your father being a former goalkeeper? Did you get special training off him?
Well, believe it or not a great deal. He firmly believed. Obviously, if we asked him something particularly about goalkeeping, he would tell us. But he wanted us to find out for ourselves. He wanted us to be independent thinkers. He wanted us to be able to work it out because your father won't always be there, or a guide. When you're out on that pitch, when you've gone over that white line, you're there by yourself as a goalkeeper. You're the last line of defence. So it was, he gave us. I've said before in the courses, and Dan and Craig will probably back me up. The four principles of goalkeeping is what he gave us. Start position, judging the flight and pace of the ball, making a good decision, and then being quick enough to execute that decision. And those four things for me have always been a constant in my playing career and also in my coaching career as well. And he specifically gave us those, and it was always something I could look back on and think, yeah, if I made a mistake, was I in the right position? Did I judge that ball? Did I make a good decision? And then was I quick enough? And it was always something I could go back to, and I could work it out very quickly. One of those four areas I might have fallen down, and that's something that I pass on and use now in my coaching.
Dan, would you agree with Alan there, those four principles, as much as the technique, the art of goalkeeping has probably changed or been altered through the years, those four principles stay true?
I think so. It used to be a situation of training was a one-size-fits-all for everybody, and working hard was supposed to make you better, but actually we've probably evolved to work a little bit more smart over the years, and certainly from being on the coach's side, adapting to the individuals, the needs and the conversations, as opposed to we're just going to set out four cones in a box and we're just going to do up and downs, for God knows how long it's going to go, and it's great to listen to Alan. He's talking about having a mentor, talking to him, and only four things that he takes away from it has made a huge difference to his career, at a different level. When you start off and the goalkeeping coach comes in twice a week in 1997, your games were never really picked apart or given an opportunity to reflect on your performances, just because there was nobody there really with an understanding or an empathy for what's gone on in the game, and I think that's probably the biggest change in coaching, that people are a lot more sort of adaptable, that, okay, we'll put this session on for this goalkeeper and I might treat the other goalkeeper differently within the same session.
I think that's a really good point, Craig, isn't it? But it kind of leads to something that I wanted to ask at the top, was really, should a goalkeeper be much more included as part of an overall team session going forward? Like, as Dan kind of alluded to, sometimes the goalkeeper was sent down the far end of the pitch and someone lashed the ball at them for, half an hour or something, but should they be more involved?
100%. I think it's something that we've been preaching for the last number of years, that has evolved into the coach education program, certainly, and we feel it's getting into the ground now. It's getting into the coaches on the ground, that they realise the benefits of it. We do elements of the courses where we outline to the coaches that it could be from 75 and 90% of the goalkeeper's actions within a game could be distribution or being involved with the team in terms of build up or playing long or whatever it may be. So why not have them incorporated in that? They need to be comfortable with what they're looking to do. So it's a modern trend will be the goalkeeper building up for you, or us building up from the back. That will be a modern trend of the game and will be a big part of their action. So if we don't include them in that part of the training, or they're not aware of the team tactics, they can't execute that on a Saturday for you. So we can't expect them to go off to the cabbage patch in the corner for 45 minutes every session, come into the five-a-sides, and then on Saturday when you're looking to build up and you have an intricate way to restart the game, and you're pulling your hair out on the sideline because he can't do it for you, that's a little bit mad. So yes, the inclusion is crucial. We need to get them better with their feet. So playing the game, being involved in the game is probably only going to enhance that. So for us, Gareth, certainly as a department and as an association, it's something that we're heavily driving, being involved, reality based as much as they can. Yeah.
There's something Alan said there was, the goalkeeper can give a different perspective of things, have a different view. If they're down the other end of the pitch and they're not involved in those sessions, they probably are not listening to the instructions being given out anyway. So they're completely out of the loop of what the manager's kind of saying to the group.
Yeah, there's probably no information being given to them, and that's the reality. Even kind of the goalkeeping actions that they're seeing in the corner for 35 minutes aren't even real actions that they're potentially going to see in the game. So we speak about in coach education terms, football actions. It goes through a process of communication, whether it's verbally or non-verbally. There's a decision to be made, and there's execution. That's not even taking place if they're training in isolation. It's all just lovely, nice. The ball goes where it's supposed to go. If you start adding in defenders, opposition attackers, whatever it may be, balls are being bended around attackers. Lots of different problems start to become, and that happens on a Saturday. But if we set our goalkeepers up for failure on a Tuesday and a Thursday by giving them lovely volleys, lovely dives, it's all nice and it's in a little isolated bubble, and then we throw them out onto a Saturday. The analogy that I like to give is you're kind of swimming on a chair. That if you pull out a chair for your 6-year-old and you ask them to swim on the chair in the house, you bring them over to the side of a pool after 6 weeks, they've been brilliant at that, bring them over to the side of the pool and drop them in the pool, they'll probably drown. And effectively that's what we can do to our goalkeepers. Tuesday, Thursday, we're swimming on the chair. Saturday, we say to them, all the best. Let us know how you get on, because we're throwing them at the unknown. And I think we've all probably been there where we've stood on the side of a pitch at a schoolboy game or a young game, and the ball's been clipped over the top and the goalkeeper is glued to the goal line. And everyone's losing their plot saying, why is the goalkeeper not coming off? He's probably not coming off because he's never seen it before. And Tuesday, Thursday, he does lovely volleys, lovely dives and plays in a small side of game, and he's never seen that through ball. He doesn't understand distances, when to go, the decision making, all that kind of stuff comes into play. So there's no real football actions for him. So it's exposing the goalkeeper to real environments, to what they're going to see on the Saturday. And that looks different to every age group. That from under 8s to senior football, that looks completely different. But we need to help them as much as we can and expose them to the real stuff. Just
to confirm that the FEI Child Welfare Department does not endorse getting children on chairs to go swimming. Alan, can I just ask, in terms of when a coach comes on to the goalkeeping coaching courses, do you have to break their perception of what training a goalkeeping and a goalkeeper and coaching them is for them? Is there an education part of the process for coaches, because traditionally they might have done things a certain way?
I think definitely. I'll go back to 2016 when we sort of redid the goalkeeping B license, and the first batch of candidates came in before the first goalkeeping A license, the UEFA one, which Dan and Craig were both on, and it was the goalkeeping coaches were putting on goalkeeping practices, and it was interesting that they were doing a volley and they was catching a volley and they throw it back, And what we introduced was, listen, if you catch that ball, or if you deal with that ball, you're in possession of that. What do you do with it now? So it was building in that thought process of actually it's an action within the game. I think, you know, from what we're trying to do, we're trying to relate it to the game at every opportunity. So even, you know, as we said about the inclusiveness of the training, you know, for me, I look at that and I say, right, if my goalkeepers, if they go into a possession-based practice, then the team know what their favourite foot is, they know what the touch is like, they know what how comfortable they are using them in terms of possession. They get an understanding. They understand, you know, the talking element, the football language elements of it as well. So I think when you bring them all together, don't get me wrong. We've said this. There is still the place for you know, getting your goalkeeping. What's the word you use, Dan? Service benefit is. It's. I think you know, going away and having those minutes with them, those one-to-one, you know, and recently I've had a lot of one-to-ones, but I've always related it to the game, to a situation that's happened in the game, and you try and recreate from that. But I think as a coach, you've got to be, like the lads say, you know, in terms of like just hitting straight volleys and just being predictable. You know, there's this big debate now between being predictable and being random, you know, in terms of your practice. Well, everything in the game can be random because it's not, you know, the perfect ball might come back, but it might not be struck perfectly. It might, you know, take a deflection. It might hit somebody on the shin. So it's simulating those types of situations, incorporating them into your practice. But then, you know, it's this synergy where all the coaches come together and everything fits. So it's game related, game specific. You know, then you've got your units in terms. It could be a defensive unit. It could be the goalkeeper playing out, you know, with split centre backs. It could be playing into centre midfields. It could be missing somebody out into a high and wide fullback. So I tend to, well, I do all the time now. I relate it to the game both in my practices and also in terms of how that formulates a practice for the team getting ready for a Saturday.
Alan, you've worked with a lot of different managers throughout your career. Have you found different styles? Is that a conversation that you have to have very early on with a manager of what they want from their goalkeepers, as part of a group, as an individual, and how you coach them as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that we spoke about just recently with the goalkeeping airlines, the new candidates for that. And it's about, you know, I asked this question, and it'd be interesting with the lads say, I asked the question: the manager leads, the players and the staff follow. So, you know, you've got this, you know, do you understand the manager's vision in terms of his playing style? Do you understand their working practices, the personalities, you know, in terms of that observation, being able to observe, you know, what you can fit in, when you can fit in, what you can suggest. And we did something from a recent game where Craig will know from Georgia, where Darren Randolph had 30 long kicks in the game. And he was carrying a little bit of a thigh issue, and then we were going to play Switzerland. So, you know, I was doing my goalkeeping stats. Came back, there was 64 distribution actions for Darren Randolph in that game alone, and the ball's only in play 60 minutes. That gives you an idea of how much possession a goalkeeper could have in a game. So it was a case of, you know, how do you get your message across? Is that verbally? I think Craig said before about verbally. Or is it an A4 paper that says these are the goalkeeping actions, these are distributions, this is how many long balls there was in the game, and this is how many times we lost possession because of it. What do you want to do with this possession that our goalkeeper has? So again, it's about how you get your message across, but also it's also stating fundamentally that the goalkeeper is such an integral part of a match day, not just keeping the ball at the back of the net. They can be a start of attack. They could be changing the point of the attack. You know, it's many forms that the goalkeeper takes within the game now, and that's the modern day goalkeeper.
Dan, during your experience as a player and as a coach, do you feel that the managers maybe didn't always get what a goalkeeper needs to do, and maybe there's an education process there to work with a manager, and is that something that's always ongoing as well?
I think it comes from the relationship that you get with the manager. Some managers are literally, they really don't care what the goalkeepers do with you. They're not really interested in it as long as they're ready to perform when called upon. And that's the tricky part. Now, if that's the case, that's fine. But then we need to listen as coaches really intently to what they say. So when we go out and train, that we can put context on the work that we do to lead into the session that the manager is going to put on, or the match day objective. If you think of like double movements, like Alan alluded to there, of playing over somebody into the top. So if the midfielder drops straight down the pitch, the natural instinct is to give it to that player. But if he's actually creating space beyond them, if we don't understand that prior to going into that training session and then leading into the 11v11, that actually won't happen. And then the coach will then have to go back and actually coach that point. Whereas if we're involved in those meetings at the start, it'll be a case of when the 4, 6 or the 8 comes down the field, let him come a little bit and see does it open up space behind him, and then look to clip in if that's the case. If nobody follows him, give him half turn, and that's football. That's that decision making. But actually, if the objective is to play over and into or onto a forward player, we can do that prior to going into the 11v11, which then the coach, the outfield coach manager, doesn't actually have to waste any time on that. He can actually give more detail as opposed to the big picture of kick it over, you know.
As you transition from a player to a coach, Dan, did you have your own ideas of how I'm going to do it this way when I get into coaching, and these are things are not being looked at, and your own ideas and stuff?
Yeah, like we're all formed from our experiences. So there's some things that I definitely take forward that I've used before. And then there's other things. And I suppose the big difference for me is there's actually, we've got more time with the goalkeepers in terms of like, because the goalkeeping coach is there every day, you know, from academy kids to senior players, they have one every day. And in some cases, they have 2 goalkeeping coaches at certain clubs. So, you know, you got to evolve with the game, evolve your own style. And I think the big thing for me is actually, it's the conversations either in and around the building or from the building to the grass are the bits that sort of influence the sessions. So I have the overall topic of what I want to do, but if I notice that one of the goalkeepers isn't particularly in good form, you know what I mean, or is in really, really good form, or is coming off the back of a good performance, then sessions can change. But I just think it's that sort of the human element of, okay, I know this person, I know what way he works, I know how he ticks or doesn't, you know, and put the session on for them. And I think it's a case of like, we're finished essentially, you know what I mean? Yes, we've got experiences, but it's actually about that person that you're looking after in the now that you need to make better, you know, and whatever your preconceptions are, it's probably more about their learning styles potentially than your own experiences.
Craig, one of the big things that people will latch onto in terms of the changes in goalkeeping coaching would be goalkeepers have more time with the ball at their feet now and kind of being used as someone to build play from the start. I know a lot of focus was on this with Pep Guardiola at Bayern Munich when he used Manuel Neuer a lot, almost nearly as a sweeper. But this has always been the case, really, hasn't it? Like there's many examples. I remember, you know, Jose Chilavert with Paraguay back in the day. He was almost like that kind of player as well. Like, and I know it's more focus on it now, but it's something that kind of was always been part of the game.
I think they had to, as soon as the back pass rule came in, that was it. You had to kind of deal a little bit more with the ball, and that's soon evolved with team tactics in general has probably evolved. It's probably got a little bit more intricate, but I think you're right. I think it was always there. I think certainly probably the 2 clubs that Alan and Dan work with now are very possession-based teams, or the goalkeepers are really involved in the play, whether that's from build-up or whether it's just staying connected in general. So in terms of that, it's crucial that they're integrated. If they're not integrated, it's probably a massive problem for you come Saturday. But when you look back, they probably weren't as integrated as much. I think that's been the evolution for the goalkeepers, that they're starting to be integrated into the practices as opposed to training in the corner. You're still involved in the game. You're still using your feet. You're still a part of the team, but you're training in the corner. We don't really see it as a part of the team when we train, but come Saturday, you can be a part of the team. Now you're a squad player, you're a team player, we have 11 players, we don't have 10 plus 1. And I think that's kind of been the big evolution of that, Gareth. It's more so the training aspect and the realization that we can actually use this probably more of what we do. It's not that they get the game started for us, that they can actually be involved in the game. Yeah. We can use them for numbers. We can get numbers up in areas to make sure we create overloads and be a little bit more braver maybe in areas. And I think your examples of Guardiola's and things like that have probably evolved everybody's thinking. and exploded people's brains at times, probably as well, in a good way, with panicking and people playing in areas that they shouldn't. But that's people's ideas on the game, and everybody's different. But I think the biggest probably evolution has been the integration in general, and realization that, God, we can use these more.
There's an element of trust that has to come in as well, isn't there? Because if it breaks down, I remember watching the game in the Kennedy Cup a couple of years ago in Limerick, and they tried to build from the back, got intercepted, and then straight away the manager said, "Okay, we're never doing that again." So there was no confidence shown in the players or the goalkeeper, and they just everything was just long balls after.
And look, they're the pros and cons, and it's risk for reward. Certainly at all levels, it's risk for reward. But what are you trying to achieve? There needs to be it's nice to play out from the back, and it's modern, and it's what people want to do, and it's best practice, and it's what we should be trying to teach especially our babies, and as they get a little bit older, certainly what they should be trying to do. But what are you trying to achieve by playing out? And I think that as you get a little bit older, that needs to be the conversation. Are we playing out to create space in a certain area? Are our players good enough to play out? Are they competent enough to play out? Is our goalkeeper competent enough to play out? Possibly not. So as they get a little bit older, there are probably decisions that needs to be made. Like Dan's and Alan's examples, they have two really competent goalkeepers at the football clubs now at the moment that can play, and that's why they can play. But I think the trust element needs to come, certainly at the elite level, needs to come from manager to goalkeeping coach, that he has the ability to have an understanding of what you're trying to achieve, that he can implement all of the manager's ideas into the goalkeeping sessions and all the practices that go around, and then it's up to the goalkeeping coach to have the trust in the goalkeeper that he can go and do that. And then I think everybody needs to trust the goalkeeper then when it comes to Saturday, that they have the ability and are competent enough to build up or receive play, change point of attacks, like Alan was saying.
And part of that is obviously practice makes perfect, by being involved in sessions, being like even including the goalkeepers in the rondos at the start of training and stuff like that.
100%, and like that's a big thing that we would speak about kind of right through the grassroots education, and that how can you integrate them, where do you integrate them, why are you integrating them? Like, yes, it's brilliant to have them in the rondos, but so we don't just throw them into the rondos, for example. Where are we putting them on the rondos? Do we play them off the base of it so that it's natural? It looks like I'm playing to a centre back or playing to a full back. Do we put them in the middle, maybe the odd time, just to get them to run around and get a little bit of conditioning in? They can maybe use their hands when they're in the middle. So there's always a thought process why they're in the rondo. It's not just throw them in and we're throwing them in and they're using their feet, but does it look like the game for them? Is it realistic? Are they making little ones around the corner that they're not going to be doing kind of on Saturday? We don't want them doing on Saturday. So try and make it relative to them. But yeah, absolutely, Gareth, you need to integrate them, and that's why you integrate them, to have the trust.
Alan, just touch on what Craig there, reality and making it realistic. It's a kind of a term that UEFA use a lot in terms of coaching reality-based learning. So making sure when you are coaching with goalkeepers that everything is match specific or at least match related.
Yeah, I think I said before in terms of Dan said it about context and going about game related stuff, about if you can tie it to something, if you can tie it to something that's, it might not even be your goalkeeper, it might be something, did you see something in the Bundesliga at the weekend, and what were your thoughts about that? So I think it's when you tie it into a, and generally it's a visual context that everybody's seen, or something that if it's in your goalkeeper from say the previous game, as a goalkeeping coach, I think having that adaptability to pick out an instance and describe it in detail to your goalkeeper, and he thinks, wow, he has seen that, he knows what happened, he knows the situation. If the goalkeeper's got into difficulty, if you can explain that without looking at a video and going, I think so, having that knowledge, that's aligned to the trust that you've got with your unit, and I think we said it. We've talked about trust, and we're talking about units, and I think that aligned to experience, to knowledge. Within a management team, if a manager knows, when he mentions something specifically about playing out from the back, and you say yes, we need a reverse movement from the number 8, that catches the goalkeeper's eye, that might be away from the ball, and that's the trigger to play into him. Then he knows that you understand the game. That you're not talking about it as a goalkeeper coach. You're talking about it as a coach, and it's an element of the game that you're picking out that's going to help the team. you know, and I think that's a really big thing in terms of knowing, having the knowledge that you've seen what the manager's seen, you've seen what the coaches have seen, and then you're contributing that point that fits in with the picture that they've seen. Because when you do, then you gain the trust, then you gain the dialogue, and then you become more inclusive within that group of a management team. And I think that's the critical part, that is gaining the knowledge and the understanding of your different styles of play, your systems of play, your principles of play, understanding the manager's vision, as we said before. Are you possession based? Knowing when, we've used the word before about risk and reward, knowing when it's, you want you to take a risk. You're on about Pep Guardiola and Edison, that one, the blind pass around the corner, knowing that's acceptable. And just going back to the rondos, I think sometimes, I mean, sometimes, and I go back to when we were kids where there was no rules, where you probably didn't have the same structures we had these days. So we had to, I go back to what I said before, I had to work it out for myself. I think sometimes throwing them into that and see how can they handle the pressure, because it's pressure, isn't it? It's, can you play one around the corner, which improves your ball manipulation and the skill on the ball. So I think sometimes it's actually saying, go on then, take yourself into that environment, see how you get on.
Yeah.
And they discover then, don't they? Rather than always being told, we'd like to do this situation in this manner. I think sometimes you say, go on, you make your own decisions. It's in training. Why not? And I think, then some of the players go, oh, he's not bad, is he? Suddenly, and then that's where your inclusiveness comes again.
Dan, more so than any other position, I think goalkeepers have a lot of there's a lot of preconceptions about goalkeepers. He can't be too small. He has to be vocal. He has to be a bit mad. Is another one, as well. As someone who's working at a professional club, when you're recruiting a goalkeeper or bringing someone through at the development stage, are these just complete and utter, myths that we just have to debunk, or is there truth in some of these kind of things?
I think it's where you place your value on the goalkeeper. You know what I mean? If you are hell bent on playing out from the back, total football, well, then you will look for that, and you'll probably sacrifice 3 or 4 inches potentially. If there's 4 or 5 pillars of goalkeeping, and you're working in the Premier League, the likelihood is the goalkeeper you're going to have 4 out of 5. Whereas when you work your way down through the leagues, you might not get 4 out of 5. You might be lucky to get 2 or 1 if he's absolutely outstanding at it. And that's the balancing act that we have as coaches at this level, that you're not going to get, in Ederson, for argument's sake. You got to make do with what you get and make the most of what you already have. And I think that's just the difference in level. So what are you prepared to trade off? If you're in a league where the ball just gets bombed in the box, the likelihood is, you're going to need a shot stopper and a cross taker. Total football, and you're the top of the league, and you're going to be the dominant team in it. In which case, then you probably forsake coming for crosses if he's outstanding with his feet. So it's just about where you place that value in that goalkeeper, and making sure that he's competent enough that he's not outstanding with his feet and going to be horrendous at everything else, and ultimately you'd get the sack for that.
I just say on that I always ask a question, and I always say to somebody said, oh, this goalkeeper's not this or he's not that. I always ask the question, how effective is that goalkeeper? Can he do his job as a goalkeeper? Is he effective, receiving the back pass and playing out and all those, all the components of goalkeeping, but also all the team elements as well. How effective is that goalkeeper? I've had a couple of goalkeepers in my time, and they might not have been the tallest, but they're incredibly effective. And they say, oh, well, he's going to struggle on crosses, and without naming names, one of the goalkeepers I had, caught more crosses in the championship than any other goalkeeper in one season. So it's the question that you can say I think as a goalkeeping coach, you can say to the management team, how effective is that goalkeeper? And then when they look at it in terms of what actions is he competent at, then that question really, really changes their focus, rather than, oh, I like a big one, I like a 6'4" because I like to fill the goal. But if that 6'4" goalkeeper can't move his feet and concedes more goals from shots or cutbacks or whatever it may be, then they're less effective. So it's a really good question, I think, that managers, coaches, and goalkeeper coaches can do is just listen. This goalkeeper is incredibly effective, and then that's where you do your due diligence of your clips, of your data, of your match analysis, of your goalkeeping stats, and tie that all together in whatever you need for your recruitment. And that is an effective package to send, or to look at from a management team through to a recruitment team, and so on and so forth. So I think it's a really good point there. He's always asked the question, how effective is your goalkeeper? How effective is your right back, your centre back, and so on and so forth?
Greg, as part of the coach education setup, there's now a pathway for goalkeeping coaches now as well. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it would have been, there was obviously goalkeeping coaching courses previously. When I was coming through as a player and stuff like that, when I was growing up, I remember playing on courses, and Packy and Decky McIntyre would have been a part of that process, and they would have ran it through. Alan would have took up the mantle in around 2016, 2015 to get the ball rolling again and to upgrade our goalkeeping B licence. And that was kind of around the time that the coach education department completely changed the pathway. So I had just moved into coach education at the time, and Niall asked me to look at the goalkeeping pathway as a whole, and could we create one? Is there scope for it? We felt there was, so we kind of got it up and running. So we run from our fundamentals of goalkeeping, which is the basic fundamentals for young kids, basically for parents or for starting out coaches who can give the basics of goalkeeping. So the set positions, their footwork, the basic handling, all the little intricate bits that we can help them with to get them started on their coaching journey, basically. Then we moved that into our goalkeeping D license, which deals with like multiple goalkeepers. So this is where we start to look at reality-based learning. How can we use that goalkeeping session where you have 3, 4, 5 goalkeepers? Because a lot of clubs in the country that's what a session might look like, where you've got 3 or 4 or 5. So how can you make it real for them? How can it look real? Can you use 2 goalkeepers as centre backs in your session? Can they be strikers? Can you play a 1v1 into the goal? Little things like that. So we're looking to enhance that in terms of making sure that they use the multiple goalkeepers to get the realism out in their session. Goalkeeping C evolves from that a little bit more. There's a little bit more detail added to that. Then we move into the goalkeeping B, which Alan would have been a massive part of creating. And that looks at goalkeeping technical practices into working with units. So you're now working with 12 players, 14 players, 16 players, whatever it may be. So you're now coaching from the goalkeeper through the goalkeeper. And goalkeeping A evolves into kind of the same, a little bit more to it. There's lots of modules and different things that come into play, but it's very much aligned to the outfield information, Gareth. It's not, we're trying to get away from the isolation. UEFA are big on even terminology. The term goalkeeping coach might go soon, it might go in the long term. You never know. It's going to assistant coach that specialises in goalkeeping would probably be the more closer title for the role, because that's what they want it to be seen as. It's not Alan or Dan over in the corner just working with the goalkeepers. They're part of the staff. They have a massive input to what happens, and we're trying to really filter that message right down through our pathway. And to be honest, it's been brilliant. The pathway has it's been fantastic. We've had massive numbers through since 2016, 2017, since we got it up and running, and it's well and truly established within the pathway, and we're looking to grow it. We've started the process already with UEFA, looking at changing our goalkeeping B to now being a UEFA goalkeeping B. So that's going to be accredited by UEFA. So we'll pilot probably a course in 2021, and please God, all going well, it'll be accredited by UEFA. And so now we've got 2 UEFA goalkeeping licenses, which is absolutely fantastic for the FAI itself, and for us to have the opportunity to do that.
Dan, you've gone through the goalkeeping coach education pathway, and now you're going to go on to the UEFA Pro license. Do you think that more goalkeeping coaches should pursue that route and go on to the Pro license?
I think it's open for people to upskill themselves all the time. I think I got to a point where I've done a goalkeeping A and an outfield A, and I think my own development, my own education was I either go to university and do a sports degree or go for a pro license. And I was delighted to be accepted onto that process. But it's like, how was I going to get myself better? How was I going to get myself better at dealing with staff members? In terms of a football club, so the coaching cells, generally speaking, aren't enormous, but then you have all the additional staff coming over the top of that. So we don't have hundreds of staff here at the moment, but really being able to do work through the different departments, you know what I mean, and be skilled in doing that was important for me. And I think that's probably most of the reason I went and I took it. I don't have an amazing career behind me to pin my name to it, in which case I just need to prove myself as being competent and a valued member of staff. And I think a pro license goes a long way to do that.
Can you explain a little bit about the kind of work that you currently do at Forest Green then?
So I'm first team goalkeeping coach or head of goalkeeping, if that's the way. And I have an additional tag to my name of being like the PDP liaison. Essentially, that is looking after the reserve team and younger players when they come into the first team environment, that I'm their point of contact, that if there's any issues, or just to be that friendly face, because sometimes it can be quite daunting for young lads to come up into a first team environment. In one of our reserve games this year, we had 2 15-year-olds play, so still in school, but the afternoon off school to come out and play. So for them to know my face and know my name, and then for me to go and look after them, just helps that sort of process go more smoothly. So my day-to-day business is looking after the goalkeepers, but then we have the manager, Mark Cooper, Matt Mills is a player coach, and myself. We have strength and conditioning, 2 of those, and our physio team as well. So in terms of the coaching cell, it's quite small, and probably in comparison to Alan's. I don't know exactly what he has, but I would imagine that he'd have a few more members of staff knocking around the building. So for my own development, it's brilliant because I'm involved at the front end. I sit there and I listen more than I speak, because the manager and the coaches will have their way, and that sort of helps. Again, I think Alan touched on about the understanding of what we want to do as a team and where we want to go. So it's not about me or the goalkeeper special or whatever. It is a case of, okay, this is the team objective, and what are the members of staff going to do to ensure that we achieve that? So, it's being right in at the thick of it is great. I've been at clubs before where it is literally, you go over there, we'll go over here, and then when we come in, we'll run the show from there. And that is a part and parcel of football. Being adaptable, I think, is a key attribute in being a goalkeeping coach, and not being sort of reactive, because at some point the manager will turn around and look at you on a match day and, point at you as if it's your fault that the goalkeeper's done X, Y, or Z, and it's just a case of going, okay, I get this. And then the experience teaches you to say nothing, and then maybe review it after. Does the manager have a point, or do you think we might need to educate him? And then in which case we'll show him the way. But again, look, that's just relationship building. That happens in any walk of life, in any business, but it's just a case of football's a little bit more probably emotive than accountancy. No offense to accountants. Actually, my brother's an accountant, so I can say that.
Alan, are your experiences at a Premier League club like Everton much different to Dan's with your infinite resources at Finch Farm there?
I think I've been working my way up as well in terms of going back to Preston when they were in Division 1 and working as. Do you know what? It doesn't really matter about where you are and what you have. It is about the relationships within that group, and that might be 3, 6, 9, 12, whatever it is. We did something yesterday working within the management team, and we worked in our situation, Gareth, and any one day we might have 30 plus staff for a senior international gathering. So how do you react? How do you mix and work within that group? So again, I think, looking at it, and saying, well, we've only got this and we've got that. It's how can you get the best result with the resources you've got, whether that's 3 people, 10 people, or 30 people. And I think, again, we looked at, relationships in terms of respect, and we spoke yesterday about values, and having good people with good values around you. And when you get that I've used the word before, that synergy, when it comes together, then things tend to happen for good, And just going back to before we said about the goalkeeping A license, in terms of education. And I go back to these 2. I'm looking at them now from 2016. The 2 candidates were on it. It was the best thing I ever did. Was asked to lead it and do the presentations and stand up there and present. And then go behind the scenes, the work. Well, these 2 laugh because I used to keep setting them assignment after assignment after assignment.
The best one coming today, is there?
It was the course in the world that will match ours for assignments in 2016. But all behind it was this process from UEFA, the B52 form, and it was a thing. But it was just another way. Sometimes in football, when you've been a player and then you're a coach, other people do that stuff, don't they? It's taken care of. It's details that, okay, it's not really relevant to me. And it was something that taught me a really good lesson in terms of, to make the whole wheel roll and work and happen, everybody has to play their part within that. And again, when that all comes together and you're rolling and it's free or whatever, then you tend to get results and you tend to be successful. And I think, how can I've said to the lads, my ethos is, how can I help? I think it's a great question that you can bring to any management team. It's a great question you can bring to, whatever club you're at, whether it's League of Ireland, whether it's grassroots, whether it's the senior international team, whether it's Everton and the Premier League. How can I help? And that tends to lead people to be open, discuss, and you tend to arrive at the same type of outcome that you were looking at the start. And I think it's something that a lesson for me was really understanding what happens behind the scenes at licenses, at coach education, what have you, and then taking that on into your coaching pathway as well.
I think just while we're on the sort of coach ed chat, is that generally speaking on the goalkeeping courses, we don't see any bad coaches working with the goalkeepers. Generally, all the information that they give to them is really good and it's current, and there's never any issue with them. But we sort of touched on earlier on that the development of the goalkeeping coaches now is, again, linking in with that management team and their own understanding of what goes on outside of the 18-yard box, both in and out of possession, So that's the sort of the mindset shift, I think, when some people come on the courses, is like, actually, we know you're competent working with goalkeepers because you work in the League of Ireland or the Leinster, Munster Senior League or whatever it might be, but it's actually, okay, this is how you transform your goalkeeper or your goalkeeper into just working on his own and being technically very good to actually being an essential part of the team. We know that transitions are a big part of football at any level, So if it's a case of your manager is working in possession and he's working around the opposition 18-yard box, then the goalkeeper recognises when transition occurs and defending the space or dropping off to defend the goal, I think is the bit that we're really trying to inform coaches and upskill them into and get them away from just being in that little bit of a corner.
Craig, is analysis part much more of a part of goalkeeping coaching now than before? Like, I know there's so many different things in terms of people, when they think of analysis, they probably think stat sports and Opta stats and stuff like that, how many meters people have run and stuff like that, and maybe that doesn't relate to a goalkeeper. But in terms of analysing the goalkeeper's performance and training and stuff like that, how does that fit in?
It's huge, and like, it's kind of twofold there. I'll give you a twofold answer earlier, Gareth. Like, coach education is huge. So we'd use it in terms of kind of like a cycle of development. So your analysis happens, your training is created off the back of your analysis, your training happens, and then you play your game, and then the analysis happens. That kind of wheel always continuously happens. So it's massive for us. All of our practices basically on our courses are based off real games or real situations from the students themselves. Certainly within the game itself, it's huge. And I think you can even get more in depth with the goalkeeping stuff, because you can look at the technical aspects. You can look at whether it's a push off from a foot, whether starting positions, did he slightly slip, did he step backwards. Outfield players probably don't look in that much detail in terms of movements or body positions or weight bearing on certain feet and things like that. And I think goalkeeping can certainly help that. There's lots of different apps out there and different softwares that you can use to help you. But I also think that goalkeeping coaches take more pride in their own analysis as well. I think they get involved more, and they don't just leave it to the analyst to look after it. I know certainly Dan and Alan are massive on this, and they'll probably speak a little bit more after. But get involved as well. Have your own analysis. Do your own analysis, so you can build that relationship with the players yourself. So you can come to your goalkeeper and say, well, I've looked at this from the weekend, and you're getting into minute details, really, really intricate stuff. And I think that helps really get buy-in from the goalkeeper. So he's now saying he cares about me. He's taken this time on a Saturday or Sunday night, and he spent 7 hours breaking down my game, and he's come back to me with this little small nugget of info that will probably help my game going forward forever. And I think that's brilliant. And then I also think it helps you create that relationship with your manager. So if you feel there's something that's happened in the game it may be the opportunity to open the door with the manager, that you've come with your own analysis. You haven't waited for the analyst to do it. You've come and said, Sunday night, sitting there, and this is what I've come back to you with, and this is what I think we should have done better, or this is what we done really well, or whatever the scenario may be. All of a sudden, the manager's thinking he's adding value. He's adding massive value to what we're doing here as a staff. And I think that's the big thing that we're trying to sell, certainly certainly from the goalkeeping A to goalkeeping B, is how are you adding value to your staff? How are you adding value? It's not, don't wait on the question. So always being prepared for when the question happens, that you kick in the door basically, and you make sure that your information is spot on, because you might only get one go at it. The manager might only come to you once and ask your opinion on a certain situation. So you make sure that you nail it, but you may have to consistently do that for weeks and weeks and weeks by pulling games apart or situations, and being involved in the team meetings and having an understanding of the terminology and the language, that if he speaks about a transition, that the white ghost doesn't come over you and you have no idea what he's speaking about, that you've really got it and you're saying, yeah, I get that, and I can have the conversation. And that's, for me, that's why I think the education is crucial, but then you doing the work off-site as well is crucial. I think the lads will probably jump on that one as well, because I know the two of them are quite big on their own analysis.
I was going to say that you do some of this yourself. I've seen you set up your own little GoPro camera around the 18 airbox.
Yeah, I've always way back from when I started, just a little, first time they got video on a camera, just leaving it on a little tripod to the side, it just to give it a little perspective, but also that buy-in when you're showing the goalkeepers the clips, because sometimes the overall camera can be too far away for the detail that you're looking at. But in terms of two aspects, I'll go into first. First one, just going on Craig saying about that the buy-in to a manager. I had a situation where we were we'd gone from our post-match analysis and we're going into pre-match. So now we were looking at the team we were going to play. And the manager was talking, this is not recent, this is a while ago, the manager was talking about, well, where are we going to take our defensive line? How compact are we going to be out of possession? Where are we going to start when the opposition goalkeeper has got the ball and he's got time on the ball? And I'd done my analysis already on this post-match, and I'd taken 3 screenshots. One when the centre half had the ball near from the goalkeeper, from the opposition goalkeeper on the 18-yard line. One when that ball had been played into a centre midfield close to the centre circle in their defensive, and then one when it went just over the side. And I had 3 screenshots, and our formation was perfect on all 3. So again, when you're dealing with a management team, you've got other coaches, you've got all, you've got egos, you've got personalities and what have you. So, but as you walked into an office, there was a whiteboard and it was magnetic. So I just stuck them on the whiteboard. It was first in the morning. I just stuck them 1, 2, 3, close to the goalkeeper, midfield, and then into our defending half of the pitch. And the manager walked in and went, That's exactly what I remember this, right? And I remember saying it yesterday. These are the formations we're going to get when they've got the ball. They're possession based. They're going to have a lot of possession. This is where I want them. Yeah, I remember thinking that myself. There was nothing said who did this, who was what. It was just a little visual left there, because again, Dan said it before, listening to those cues, listening to those conundrums or formulations of how the next tactics is going to be take on the next opposition, and thinking, how can I help there? And it was a case of just leave them there. Someone will know some, because they're in, they were A5, boom, 1, 2, 3, left them up there, and then we formulated it. The plan was formulated from it as well. So all that coming together, was a little insight to working within that management team. But in terms of analysis, and again, we had this group last night where we showed them, it was an Excel sheet, showing 68 goalkeeping actions in the game that were individually broken down. So not does that only relate to the goalkeeper. I think I explained before, that in this one particular game against Georgia, Darren Randolph received 19 back passes. So that's 19 open play situations where the goalkeeper has got the ball at his feet. So what are the team going to do to maximise that possession? So that's not, although the ball is at the goalkeeper's feet, it's a team problem and scenario in terms of how we're going to now get the ball up the other end, because we want to create chances and we want to score goals. So by having that analysis, by doing it directly after the game, I did it on the flight from Georgia to Switzerland. So straight on, laptop, boom, all done and dusted. All the clips were done. I could show the goalkeeper, and then the sheet could be given out to the manager and say, look, there's all the actions from the goalkeeper. And then we went from there. So you really got to invest in yourself. You've got to invest in your own time to actually influence what happens in a management team, and also what happens in your goalkeeper's mentality to, improving their game as well.
Dan, you've experienced similar talent of international football as well, and the time scale is important there. Like Alan's talking about doing stuff on the plane, going from literally one game to another, and preparing and stuff like that. Like that's important as well, isn't it? That aspect of nailing stuff in a short period of time.
And that's the beauty of technology, where, when you have the laptop or you have the GoPro or you get one of the cheaper ones off the internet, £40 gets you a really, really good quality one. So there's no real excuse for not having that at your disposal, certainly if you're working in the professional or semi-professional game. But those moments of, well, okay, you can walk down the plane and show the goalkeeper, because sometimes the goalkeeper comes off and he feels like either he's had a howler or he's kicked too many long balls. But actually, when you show him back and say, in sort of the cold light of day or the night, if you're on the plane, of saying, okay, these are the actions, what could you have done differently? And generally speaking, managers get a little upset when goalkeepers kick balls very long, but actually they have to look after themselves. And sometimes having that reassuring hand for the goalkeeper to say, it's okay to kick it and not put yourself in trouble for the sake of the team goal or the overall philosophy. At some point, they need to look after themselves. Now, the flip side of that is there's always times where you think, well, did you scan away from the ball before you turn to play back for you, for argument's sake? And you go, well, no, I didn't. Was it okay? Well, this is what we're going to do, or this is what you got to focus on in the next training session leading into the game, is scan away from the ball before the ball comes back to you, because that'll aid your decision making, whether you want to switch the play or play through, or you know what the decision is. You're cut short. There's no immediate option, or the pass, I'm going to call it the short pass, is too long to make accurately or with pace. Then you have to kick, and then it's about, oh, okay, do you know where the next best option is, or your furthest safest pass is? But again, just being that reassuring hand to the goalie after he's probably taken a volley from the manager about kicking too many balls, for argument's sake. Actually, those bits of, he has to kick it because the players haven't done enough to enable him to play. Well, then the manager might go, okay, I get that. Or you might say, no, he's got to be able to do it. And then in which case you manage that process going into the next game.
And what about handling, Dan? Is that something on the coaching courses that has that kind of adapted new techniques, or is it a lot of the same kind of coaching around handling for goalkeepers?
I think there's that more. You'll see like the way the balls move in the Premier League and any Premier League of Ireland, when they hit the balls and they dip up and down and all the rest of it. Are you effective with that? So it used to be catch it, and if you dropped it and you're doing a set of 10 or a set of 20 volleys, if you drop the 18th when you have to start again. And it's probably not getting away from that. Yes, they still need to have good hands, but handling now looks a little bit more like it might be a block and drop, or you pat it down and pick it up, or, they shovel it away from danger as best they can. But again, those bits of, at the age groups where this takes place, at the younger age, you're teaching good technique and into the line of the ball and down the line or whatever it might look like. And then as you get older and it becomes about winning games, then it becomes about being effective. And if that means parrying every ball away outside the 18-yard box, great. We know the reality is that it doesn't come nice. I think Craig touched on earlier on. It doesn't come nice in a game. People don't give you nice balls. They give you the most horrible knuckle balls you've ever experienced. And some managers don't understand that. When the ball is coming and it drops 2.5 foot from about 5 feet away from you, if it hits you square in the chest, okay, it's effective because you stop the initial danger, and then it's probably about your decision making. Then after that, do you go and you chase it, or do you say, you know what, it's gone far enough away, I'll let the defenders deal with that and I'll stay in and protect the goal? But at the younger ages, we still teach all the good techniques, and then you have spreading and blocking became really fashionable there for a while. When I was young, it was like into line, down the line, and just engage them anywhere in the 18-yard box as much as you can. Whereas now, the better players will just lift it over you, or the space that you leave from your goal line is actually the bit that hurts you the most. So sometimes staying in the goal and forcing the attacker to make a decision can sometimes help you.
Sure.
Sorry,
Craig, in terms of, sorry, Alan.
One little thing is that, and I think it's vitally important as well, but as a coach, is that, you know, each goalkeeper will have their own individual style as well. And I think what we are as coaches a lot, well, I do, and I think the lads do as well, is that, you know, it's some coaches will go in and say, well, they have to be uniform, they have to be this, or they have to look like a certain way. And it's not the case, because we all move differently. We all have different ways of dealing with the ball. Again, I go back to that the message we say about how effective is your goalkeeper at any level. And I think, you know, you can get bogged down with the sort of written down, you know, tablet type commandments of you must do this X, Y, Z. It's not, you know, I think you've got to look at the goalkeeper's personal style in terms of more about their movements and how they react to certain situations, and a lot of it, you know, their emotional control. Are they always, you know, like really heavy on the accelerator, or are they calm? And, you know, that might be more psychological training in terms of bringing them down, you know, and that allows them to be more effective. So I think taking into account, you know, each individual's personal style as a goalkeeper, I think for a coach is another important thing, and not trying to have anybody uniform and you all fit into one particular box, because we're all different shapes and sizes, and we're all effective in some components of goalkeeping is better than others. But again, it's maximising what you can get out of that personal style of that goalkeeper, maximising their movement patterns, reactions, whatever it's going to be, you know. And I think that's something to take into account for especially, you know, for younger coaches and working with younger kids. You can sometimes say you've got to do this, you've got to do that, you know, and they almost become robotic, you know, where the freer goalkeeper who's a bit more natural, you know, then you're sort of tinkering with little situations and maybe looking at reality-based training, whether that's video games or what have you, and saying, look, you know, this is how you should react, or this is how you might react in this game situation, but with their own personal style. And I think that's a point worth making.
It's a great point, Craig, isn't it? And it's part of what you're doing on the coach education courses is changing that approach, isn't it? And to normalise that, as Alan is saying. And like one of the things, even in terms of the language that's being used, one of the things I saw recently was I saw a lot of people, it's no longer 4-4-2, it's 1-4-4-2, which seems like it's such a small little thing, but we've all grown up with that kind of tradition of, you know, that we didn't include the goalkeeper.
Yeah, look, and a funny one, when I started in coach education, obviously having a goalkeeping background, Niall would have thrown me in to do some presentations on UEFA license courses, and that would have been a thing that I would ask people to speak about their systems and things like that, and you'd be setting them up for failure, because you know they're going to say 4-4-2, and you're doing a specific goalkeeping presentation to them, and you try and nail them on you're playing with 10 players, eh? Where's your goalkeeper? And that's the kind of, but you're right, Gareth, it is, and it's coming from UEFA right through. I think UEFA are even recognising, well, we need to say 1-4-4-2. I think there's a book in there called The Forgotten One. Nearly, you could nearly write a book on the goalkeeper just being shoved off to the side. But you need to profile it. You need to think about, like what Alan is saying. Even little things like on some elements of courses we speak about how systems impact your goalkeeper's actions. So if your team plays a 1-4-4-2 diamond, you're obviously giving up a lot of space outside. You're potentially going to face a lot of crosses, but you have a goalkeeper who can't deal with crosses. So these are kind of things that we would speak about on courses. We're not trying to say the goalkeeper should dictate the system, absolutely not. But there should be a thought process around what you're doing. If we have a really small goalkeeper who's not comfortable on crosses, why are we sending teams outside to dump balls into the box? We can't deal with it. So little things like that, where it's more thought provoking and thinking, oh yeah, maybe that's another conversation I can have with somebody. We're not saying that this is the gospel or the blueprint, but there needs to be that kind of integration. I know we keep going back to the word, but it's an integration through a thought process, really.
So sorry, guys, just going on what Craig was saying, is that, you know, just to back that up really, and again, we go back to those stats, and, you know, and I look at the goalkeeping actions within stats, and I said to you, probably average anywhere between 40, 60, 70 touches a game. So how is that not relevant to any set of coaches or managers? How is that not relevant for a one person, that 1-4-4-2, that 1-4-3-3? How is that not? How can you maximise the goalkeeping actions that specific player is going to have in the game? You know, and again, I said to you, I go on to Darren with that 64 distribution actions. That's 64 times that he's got the ball at his feet, in his hand, or whatever. How can you use that for the good of the team and to get a result? And I think, you know, generally within football, it's been that players have probably 2% or 2 minutes of possession, you know, in a game. So, and I just said to you, our goalkeepers had 64 goalkeeping actions. I mean, it's crazy when you think about it, isn't it? Really, you know, we are biased, of course, but for me, obviously, vitally important to any team.
Some people might cynically say if the goalkeeper is getting that amount of touches in a game, that maybe something's going wrong in the overall scheme of things for the team.
Which is a great point. So then that actually then reflects on the team. So, by analysing like you do and say, well, hang on a minute, could that ball have gone into midfield? Could the defender, instead of going back to the goalkeeper to add to the 19 back passes, could I have played into midfielder? Could I have switched play, you know, to create an overload on the opposite side of the pitch? Could it have gone direct into a number 10 who can then get in behind, play between the lines and run at the defence, bringing their team back, getting us further up the pitch? You know what I mean? So suddenly now you're looking at it with a team perspective and not just a goalkeeper. So you're although the actions are being focused on the goalkeeper because he's got all these distribution actions, actually what's happened within the team play that meant the ball has gone back to him. So I think the lad said to me, you know, was there enough counter movement? Did the centre forward stop making runs? You know, did the wide players, did they come inside to give the fullbacks problem? All these things then become a tactical discussion of team play, and it goes back to what we said right at the beginning in terms of like that inclusiveness of everybody together and thinking, you know, the action of a fullback, you know, how can we build from a fullback? It's still team related. If there's nothing on, he come back to the goalkeeper, he changes the point of play, and goes out the opposite side to create an overload. So do you know what I mean? So it's having, I think, as goalkeeping coaches, and we said before we should get away from that term because we do side by side licenses, we do goalkeeping licenses, and we do outfield licenses. So we're actually doing a double education. But for us, you know, I think that makes us appreciate all areas of the pitch, and we're looking from a goalkeeper looking up the pitch in that portrait view, but again through a team view as well. You know, and how can we get the best result for the team? And I think looking at it in that way takes away from being 4-4-2 to 1-4-4-2.
Dan, can I ask something that goalkeepers are often involved in and can become heroes and die now for the rest of their days? Kieran Kelly from Sligo Rovers kind of comes to mind straight away. Packy Bonner and Talia 90. Goal penalty shootouts. Al Kelly there as well. Some absolutely memorable saves and penalty shootouts. But I can understand from your point of view or from Alan's point of view when you have access to analysis and you can see, you know, the opposition and you can say, okay, he's a traditional go left or right or top corner or whatever. But for a grassroots coach, is there much you can do to coach with your goalkeepers to get prepared for penalty shootouts if they don't have access to analysis?
I think the big thing is that they just relax and their emotional control, especially when you're getting to the third, the fourth or the fifth penalty and they might have gone the wrong way for all of them, is that you instill that belief in them that, you know, that the odds essentially are stacked against them and they can only do their best, you know. And at grassroots or, you know, where the analysis isn't so strong, there'll just be a case of pick your side, maybe look for the certain cues. Is he running really tight to the ball? Is he running straight down the middle of it where he might just open up at the last? You know, and again, the context of training, or you can go back to this thing about the type of service. What does it look like? You know, the top end players are unbelievable at disguising what they're going to do, you know, and then the goalkeepers have to be really, really sharp in their reactions, but also then have the patience to wait for the right time and not just make their mind up and go early. You know, there's also that opportunity to say, you know what, stand up for as long as you can, then pick your way and then do it. And if you don't get it, don't worry about it. But if you save the fifth one, you could still win the penalty shootout. If you save the 10th one, you could still win the penalty shootout. And it's just a case of keeping them level and keeping them committed, I think, as much as anything else, and relaxed.
And another kind of set piece one would be kind of defending free kicks, of how you set your wall up and how you prepare for that as well. Something you kind of touched on a little bit earlier, how the ball is struck now. The balls are lighter, they move a lot more in the air as well. So it's very difficult for a goalkeeper now defending that.
I think the big fear, even when I still occasionally stand in between the posts and training, is the one that's coming straight at you now very rarely stays straight. It'll deviate somewhere along the way, up, down, left, right, whatever. Very rarely to come straight in. I think we had like the old Letty Das Tangos or Mitre Multiplex, the ones that were made of plastic and stung the legs off you. They were difficult to get off the ground, let alone get them to wobble. And then you saw, I think in the World Cup, I think it was in South Africa, was it, where they brought in the ball that just, you know, became difficult for them to control. I think that probably one of the most ones that sticks in my mind is Ronaldo's goal against David James, where he goes up and down over the wall into the top corner. And an unbelievable strike. But I think that the players in the wall, I think it might have been Ray Pardo, turned around and looked at him as if to go like, why didn't you save it? And it's just a case of like, just sometimes you just don't know where it's going. You move left and the ball goes right. And then it's just, again, that sort of emotional control of being prepared to move, you know, at the last minute and not give up on it or not commit too early, especially with the way that the balls go. I think when you go back to talking about setting up walls and free kicks and whatnot, I think it's just, certainly at the younger ages, it is just a case of, well, okay, these are the principles. And now when we get to sort of the professional level, you might not put your tallest player in the wall because they might have a 6'5" or 6'6" fella who'll go around the back that they may dink it up to. So again, you have to manage game to game, those type of scenarios. But again, just that basic structure of this is what it looks like, having that extra man over potentially. You know, I think there's a little graphic on the internet for any grassroots coach looking at it of where to put how many men in the wall per people around the ball. And then obviously the closer it gets to the goal, the more come in. But I think if you Google it, you'll be able to find it. But again, it's a good template just for a reference for young people to go, well, okay, there's only one on the ball and he's by the touchline. I don't need two because he's got nobody to pass it to. And don't give up an overload, or don't create an overload for the opposition just by being unaware.
There's a great, I don't know if one of you guys saw this at the All or Nothing Amazon series with the Brazil national team, and there's a great clip in that where the coach Chite focuses in on the wall, and he makes a point that he only puts players in his defensive wall who basically are ready to get hit with the ball, you know, that they have to be brave. And they kind of labour on a point about Alisson at Liverpool, where he felt that someone in the wall failed to stand up, you know, and Alisson didn't. I think it might have been Messi who scored the goal. I could be mistaken on that. But it was a real kind of key point that the coach was trying to make about the bravery of the guys in the wall, but also what the goalkeeper can see then as well in that perspective. And I basically just wanted to ask in a rounded way, is that something that you have to work more on in training, the defensive side? But obviously, you know, people want to take free kicks and put them in the top corner all day long, but from a defensive point of view, particularly from a goalkeeper commanding it,
I think it's massive. I mean, I speak from experience where I had a manager once who said that he wanted a split wall. So he wanted two, you know, if it's a direct free, he wanted two on to cover one post and two to cover the other post. He said, so you'll get a good sight of it. And I said, well, position will just fill it. No, they won't. So I said, well, listen, you're the coach, you do it. And it was the first season of Premier League, playing Crystal Palace away, two on one post, two on the other. So Mark Bright, Ian Wright, and who the other one was, boom, went right in the middle. So, and then what the fella did, he shot the ball, they just went out of the way, and then you had to react. So I had less time to react. And then after I see your point. Close it off next time. But, you know, I think set plays are huge in terms of personnel that you use for as zonal players. Again, another thing, are you a man mark? Are you zonal in terms of corners? But, you know, do you like a really tall front zone player? So you're saying to the man on the ball who's taking it, the opposition player, you're going to have to lift that ball a bit higher, which gives us more time. In the wall, like you say, bravery. Do you like, you know, do you analyse the opposition in terms of how someone strikes the ball? If it's a knuckle ball that goes over, sometimes there's not a lot you can do it. But if you put two of your tall ones where he's been, or where they've hit that ball more times than not, or your psychology, I think a lot of it for me, for goalkeeping coaches, for coaches, is the psychology of the person on the ball. If you can just if it looks easy for them, if they don't see the wall, if they don't see the goalkeeper, nine times out of 10, they will hit that spot they want to hit. If you can create that psychological uncertainty, i.e., you put a bigger player, or you put your charger is outside the far post so they can't try and score the goalkeeper side, you just change their psyche a little bit within that set player that might change the delivery that's going to hurt you. Now, whether that's a direct free kick, whether it's a whipped-in corner, whatever it's going to be, I think always look to see how psychologically you can affect the person on the ball, because if they become a bit nervous and a bit tense, then the delivery is going to be off of what it normally is.
Craig, in terms of the next kind of steps for the integration of goalkeeping coaching, do you see anything changing massively in the next number of years? Or I know your guys are always developing the courses, as you mentioned, from Alan's original B license through to the current A license that there is now. Yeah,
I think from an education point of view, I think we've got to a really good place. I think we've got our coaches to a really good place. We were there wasn't a full pathway as such, so we were more ad hoc, pulling coaches in. They were joining courses. Now we've got a kind of a flow through. We're affecting them more consistently, so that's great. And I think now we can start to evolve the information. We can start to kind of layer information on, even little things like, because we've got the national leagues, the underage national leagues, so there's a lot more opportunities for goalkeeping coaches in this country. So now we can start to tier a lot more information that's geared towards, I'm not going to say professional football isn't professional, but it's a lot more closer to it because we've got that better structures. So I think we've got better opportunities now to get a little bit more detailed and a little bit more elaborate in what we do in terms of our courses. I think we're at a brilliant place. I think we started off, I'm not going to say the bar was low, it wasn't low, but we started at a point, and I think we've gradually built it. I think we're in a really good place to build that. I think in terms of goalkeeping coaching as a whole, I'd like to think that what we're trying to achieve at goalkeeping A level, where coaches are taking sessions, not taking full sessions, but are massively a part of the team tactical element and taking coaching practices with 12, 16, whatever numbers it may be. I'd like to think that that's the route we're taking, and I think we have a massive opportunity in this country, especially with a lot of young modern coaches, head coaches in positions at the moment, and I think we've got some really good goalkeeping coaches supporting that. And I think we've an opportunity now for them to work together, and for the goalkeeping coach to take more of a stronghold in the staff, and to be apparent in the phases of play, or the 99 games or 11 games, and to be giving them 10 players on a Monday night or a Tuesday night or a Monday morning and saying, there you go, fix the problem that we had on Saturday or Friday night from dealing with wide crosses. You fix it. We'll split off into 2 units, or whatever the situation may be. I'd like to think that that's the next step for goalkeeping coaching, where they're physically hands-on and they've a real hold on sessions, more of an input into outfield sessions, taking the lead in things. I think we're getting there. I really do think we're getting closer. I don't think we're not expecting goalkeeping coaches to be running sessions and to be running the whole lot. Absolutely not. That's not their place. But I do think we're close to breaking the barriers, and I think it complements the young modern managers that we have now, along with the quality of goalkeeping coaches that we have coming through this country, because we do have a number of really, really good ones.
Dan, you wanted to come in there?
Yeah, just as much as we're focused here on goalkeepers and goalkeeping coaches and so on, the outfield coaches are the ones that still have the power, essentially. You know what I mean, to decide your involvement in there. Connor and Craig have had myself in on a Elite U day and a pro license, and I think on a B license as well, of goalkeeping coaches presenting to those managers, or they will be managers. Some of them will be League of Ireland managers, I'm sure, to say to them, like, these are the values, or the value that we could have if you include it, or if I'm deficient in some area, the head coach is responsible in many ways for my development as well, and to include me, both to educate me, and also sort of, I may have more value or more experience than the next goalkeeping coach, that to be receptive to some of the information that might come out. Now, as the manager and the leader, he's got to decide whether that's something that he wants to do or not. But on those outfield courses as well, we're trying to get across to the value of the goalkeeping coach, the value of including them, the value that they can add to the team. I think Craig touched there that the outfield coaches have been really responsive to it, and think to themselves, well, okay, maybe I didn't do that, or I didn't include him, or we just let him go out and train and call them over in half an hour to do what he's going to do. And then, so we're pushing from both sides really for that inclusion. And like Craig said, it's not for us to become the managers and run the show. It's actually just to make the team better and the goalkeeping better. And obviously managers and clubs have a responsibility to upskill their goalkeeping coaches as well.
I think just adding to that, Gareth, and I go back to this phrase that's been mentioned throughout the webinar, is that coaches who specialise in goalkeeping. And that encompasses everything you want from a member of staff. You've got somebody who's a specialist, but they're also knowledgeable, skilled, effective in terms of coaching within a team framework as well. And I think Craig, you do that in your club as well. Your assistant manager and the goalkeeping coach and everything that goes with it. So it's just we are coaches who specialise in goalkeeping because we have that knowledge, we have that skill set, we have that desire, and sometimes a slightly different way of looking at it because of what we specialise in. And we've said before, why would you not use that or utilise that another pair of eyes that maybe give you a different perspective on something that's going to benefit your team, that's going to benefit your club, and ultimately going to get results because we are in a results-based business. So I think that term, coaches who specialise in goalkeeper, I think that's probably the way that we'll be looking to go and get that language within the coaching environment that we're working at the moment.
It seems to be a lot of things are changing for the better, and it's very encouraging to hear what you guys have to say. I think we could talk about this topic all day. There's so many other areas that we haven't touched on, and but fascinating chat. Really, thanks very much, Dan, Alan, and Craig. Great to see that there's a coaching pathway there for goalkeepers to pursue now as well, and it's developing all the time. And thank you for watching this webinar. We'd love to get some feedback from you. So feel free to leave some comments on social media and subscribe to us on FEI TV on YouTube. Thanks very much.